So guys, let's move on to the next topic, departmentation. Okay, so we already discussed what is a departmentation already. So but there are like few types of departmentation will be like existing in an organization. I mean it's about like how you classify the task or activities which is happening in an organization. You can like classify your organization based on the task they do, or based on the geographical region, or based on something else. Okay, so there are like different types available. We'll be like discussing it one by one with examples. Okay, the first the first one is based on the enterprise function. It is nothing but the way you do your activities or tasks. Okay, so if you like classify your organization with the marketing department, engineering department, production, finance, IT, HR, I mean based on the job they do, based on the task and activities which is involved in the organization, you can call that as the departmentation by enterprise function. Okay, actually this kind of classification is a logical reflection of your function, because you do HR activities and you will be like put in the HR department. You recruit and you take care of the performance appraisal of employees, in the sense you're doing a human resource related activity, so you will be like categorized into a HR department. Okay, and this kind of departmentation maintains the power and prestige among the functions, because you can be able to say, okay, I'm a HR person completely because I work for the HR department. Okay, it simplifies the training for the employees when they recruit new employees, because imagine you have finance and HR and production department together. When you recruit an employee, you have to train an employee on all these things, and it's going to be really complex, and you can't call that person is like good in HR, good in production and everything, whatever activities they do. It's humanly impossible, right? So it is like having this kind of departmentation is ideally good. Okay, but sometimes this will like de-emphasize the whole company's objective. So you might be like thinking only about your department function, thinking, okay, I have to recruit and I have to like pay my employees. You will always be thinking about that. You will not be like thinking about the overall goal of your organization. So this might be a disadvantage if you have this kind of departmentation in your function, in your organization. Okay, next one is like departmentation by territory or a geography. Based on the geographical region your company is like present, you will be able to classify your company is groups. Okay, so here you have an example. So under the president you have a marketing, personal is nothing but your HR. Okay, purchasing department, finance department. Okay, but after that there's another department. Okay, so where you have departments as western region, southwest, central, southeast, eastern regions. So all your whole organization is like categorized into the regions that they are in, and each region will have a engineering department, production department, finance and accounting, sales, HR, IT, everything under them. Okay, so first you divide your organization based on the regions they are in, and they deal with, and each of this region will have a departments. Okay, so this kind of departments will place a responsibility even at the lower level, because then the span of control will be completely different from the previous departmentation type, and the people in lower level employees also has to take things seriously, and they are like kind of they should be more accountable and responsible to the task that they are doing. Okay, if you like follow this kind of departmentation, you place more emphasis on the local markets. For example, imagine you are a company which manufacture cars, and you manufacture cars throughout the globe. Okay, the criteria for cars to be sold will be completely different in India when compared to the US. I mean, for example, you take a weight. You can't like sell a car with less weight in US, but in India, I mean, the when you compare the weight which is required to sell a car is completely different. In India, you can like also sell a car which is with less weight or the same brand, same model. Okay, this applies to Maruti. Okay, Maruti like does production in India because it manufactures a lot of Indian brands cars, right? Okay, so if you like take a particular brand, and then if you like try to sell it in India, it is like possible. But if you like take the same kind of car and export to other countries, sometimes they not buy it because their criteria doesn't suit. So in that case, they have to set up a plant in that particular region and like manufacture cars according to that particular country specification. Okay, so when you have this kind of problems, you have to like do a departmentation according to the territories. You can also like say that to Pepsi and Coke. So it's Pepsi and Coke are like always the same, brand is same, but when you drink a Pepsi or Coke in US, it will taste some kind of little different, but when you like taste it in here, it will be like different. I guess like some might have would have experienced this. Okay, because the way they manufacture things is kind of little different. And next is departmentation by customer group. Based on the customers that they serve, the organization like group their departments. This will be like applicable for banks majorly. So imagine here under the president there is 5 different groups. The first one is the community city banking, which takes care of the retail banking things. So anyone can just go and like open an account and then do transaction. And corporate banking where they'll be like uh, allow the organizations to like open an account. And you have a retail and mortgage loans, which deals with the providing loans when you like buy a
Ma'am, I'm sorry for the interruption, ma'am. Ma'am, it's not from our class, ma'am.
okay guys, we will discuss that later.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, so we have real estate and mortgage loans. This kind of group will be like this kind of division or department will be dealing with the loans when you like buy properties by like mortgaging things. Okay, and there's agriculture banking which provides loans only to the farmers, and there's institutional banking which provides banking facilities to the governments and only for the large corporations. Okay. So this kind of departmentation encourages concentration on the customer needs. Based on the customer that you have, you will be able to departmentize your company or an institution, and then you will be able to provide services to them as they need. Okay, so this gives customers feeling that they have an understanding supplier. So the clients will be like kind of very much happy, but it requires managers and staffs to be expert in what they are really doing and what kind of problems that the customer face. Because like you imagine you are a person who's working only for the corporate banking, you know what kind of issues the corporate face when they open an account here, and what kind of problems that the will be like solved in a day or two, and what kind of problems will like take forever. So you'll be able to deal with that because you should really know how things work. Okay, and sometimes a few customer groups will not be clearly defined. For example, you take corporate banking and institutional banking. So imagine you're corporate, you are not sure whether you have to go for a corporate or a institutional banking. So this institutional banking is only for the big corporations, and this is like for the medium to large corporations. Okay, so here you might be a little confused about clearly defining your customer groups. This are the few disadvantages also you'll be having when you go for departmentation by customer group. Okay, and you can do departmentation by products. Based on the products that you manufacture, that you deal with, or you based on services that you provide, you can do departmentation based on that. Okay. So here I have an example. I am like classifying the company based on the products that deal with. It's like engineering, indicator light division, industrial tools division, electronic meter division. Okay, so here these two products are like kind of combined, and both of them will have engineering and accounting, production, sales, all these things together. And this industrial tools and electronic meter division will have a separate engineering and production division when compared to this. So based on the product they deal with, they entirely will be having a different departments for their activities. Okay, so you can say ITC, Pricol, LMW, all these companies following this kind of a departmentation. Okay, so this kind of departmentation places attention and effort on the product line. Okay, it helps them to like provide specialized capital, facilities and skills or knowledge required for that particular department, so that they can able to like make it grow and get more profits. Okay, but it requires more people with managerial capabilities, because you will be having a separate production department for this division, and you'll be having another separate production department, and and you need two production heads. So when you like do departmentation based on the products, you'll be having you'll be needing a lot of people in the managerial position. Okay, next one is a matrix organization. This is kind of a complex structure when compared to the rest of the things that we have discussed so far. So when you see this diagram here, so here you have 4 projects that your company deals with: project A, project B, C, and D. Okay, and then you will be having a manager for each of the project. But for each of the project, you'll be needing a design team, a mechanical team, electrical department's help, hydraulic engineers help, and metallurgical engineers help, and there'll be a chief for this department. So based on the skills, you are like grouping the people into the mechanical department, electrical department, and design department. Okay, and then you assign the people who will be like executing it. Okay, so there'll be like people who will be heading the projects, and there'll be people who will be heading the departments, and they collaborate and then work. Okay, so imagine if you're part of the mechanical team, you have to deal with all the 4 projects, and if you're like part of project A, you have to deal with all the 5 different teams, because your product involves needs help from all the 5 different technical teams, right? So this is an example of a matrix organization, and this kind of organization structure like prevails in most of the R&D manufacturing companies. Okay, so how can you make this matrix organization effective? Because there's going to be, if you're going to follow this, it's going to be a lot of chaos, because you have to deal with too many managers, and too many, you will be having too many risks. So how can you make things effective here? First, you have to define an objective of your project. So first, you try to define what you want to achieve at the end of a project, and you like say what are the roles and authorities that each of the manager have in this structure, and in, I mean, as well as in this order, as well as in this area. So you have to like clearly define the roles and responsibilities of each of the managers, as well as the people in their teams. Okay, so there should not be any clash in their responsibilities that they are doing. Okay, so they have to like influence the teams, or whether they are in the project teams or in the engineering team. They have to like influence the teams only on their knowledge and only on their job, but not based on their rank they have. Not just because you're a manager of a electrical department, you can't like really redirect the projects. Okay, so there should be like always the power between the functional and project managers should be like balanced. One function should not be like more powerful than the other function. The same way, the one project manager will not be more powerful with the other project manager, and the same way it should be like between the cross teams as well. See, one project manager should not be more powerful than the department manager. Okay, the power should be like rightly balanced, and you should not influence just because you're a head of some other department. You have to be having the real knowledge, and based on the interest of the project, and the way you have to reach the objective, you have to really influence. Okay, so you have to like select the experienced people for the projects. Okay, who can like guide the team. Okay, who really is more concerned about the development of the organization, the teams, and the projects. Okay, so you first before starting the project, you have to really work on the cost it's going to incur, and when you're going to complete it, and what kind of quality controls standards that you're going to follow. All this has to be like clearly defined first, and it has to be like checked in a timely manner. So whenever people do a good job, you have to like reward the even if they are a project manager or a department manager, or just a team member. So based on the effort they put in, all this has to be monitored and should be like rewarded, and then only they'll be like feeling motivated to work. Okay, the next step is a strategic business unit. So it's kind of little different from whatever that we have discussed. Okay, here what happens is like you will not be having a department within a company. So imagine you wanted to do a different product and you start a new company itself, and you call that as a subsidiary or a strategic business unit, and all the funds that you put in will not be like part of your company. You will be treating that particular unit as a separate company itself, and it is, you can call that as a strategic business unit. So for example, this kind of things have been like happening all throughout the globe since a decade back or even a century back. So you know General Electric, right? They also like follow this kind of thing. And in the recent times, you can call example of Cognizant Technology Solutions. You all know that, right? CTS. It's actually a foreign company, which is a US based company, which is like part of Dun and Bradstreet. It's a management consultant firm which started a IT unit separately in India a few decades, 2 or 3 decades back. Okay, it was headed by D. Souza at that time, and then he was like starting as a separate company, though it was part of a Dun and Bradstreet. Okay, so it was first formed. This company is first formed to provide IT services only to the Dun and Bradstreet, but later they have diversified and went to different verticals, as well as they were like serving different customers right now. Okay, this is an example structure for a SBU. Okay, so here I have an example for a chemical unit, a chemical manufacturer. So imagine you manufacture this different range of chemicals, and you're like producing a you're creating a separate SBU only for phosphates, because there's a phosphates is kind of majorly in demand in all the agricultural nations, where agriculture is a major part of GDP. So I mean, it's actually one of the very good fertilizer, and this kind of been used in other chemical industries, in manufacturing a lot of other things, right? So you're like creating a new SBU only for the phosphate manufacturing department, and you'll be having a separate HR manager or a personal manager. HR division is earlier called as personal. Okay, so don't get confused when you see personal manager. Okay, the book that I'm referring to is kind of written a few years back, though, but we are still using that as a textbook. Okay, so you have a purchase manager, research manager, production manager, sales manager. It goes on, and under each division you'll be having a subdivision, and then you'll be having different teams. Okay, so this is an example for SBUs. So yes, like any other type, that you'll be having a problem with this SBU as well, because like whatever you do, there's always two sides of the coin, right? So allocation of resources for the SBUs is one of the major problem, because imagine you're going to start a new SBU, and then you have to like have a general manager for each of the function, and then you have to like really recruit them, or sometimes you might have to send from the parent company, like these also like was sent from Dun and Bradstreet to Cognizant, right? So you have to really split your resources, or you have to like recruit them. So you have to hire new resources, and this is one of the major problems that a lot of companies face when they create a SBU. Okay. Mm. So what is this organization structure which is suited for the current global environment right now? Like because of this rise of globalization, all this the boundaries between the organizations and the country is kind of shrinking. So you can rightly call this earth as a global village, right? So right now, based on this kind of environment, what kind of organization structure will suit a company? So it will be like different from company to company based on their international orientation and commitments that they have. Okay, so a company may begin internationalizing its operation by simply creating it at its headquarters as an international department headed by an export manager. As it continues to expand its international operations, their subsidiaries, it may be like established in various countries, and you'll be having a managers in charge of global operations at headquarters, or possibly the CEOs. With further growth of international operations, several countries may be grouped into regions. Like that, you'll be having Africa, Asia, Europe, and South America. So furthermore, the European divisions may be like still divided into group of countries like European Union countries, non-European Union countries, Eastern European countries, or Western European countries, like that. Okay, so then you have a virtual organization. So sometimes you'll be like having group of independent firms of people's work together through through the IT stuff. Okay, so you'll not be like having a formal organization, but sometimes it can be formal organization as well. So you can like they'll be like grouped together based on the IT infrastructure they have, and they work on it. Okay, so maybe right now due to this COVID outbreak, right now there's a lot of new groups are being like formed, volunteers are like grouping, and they're trying to help the people, or the people who are affected with COVID-19 virus, or just because of the economic crisis, there's a lot of people are there without meeting their basic needs. So there is based on the requirements, the lot of volunteers have been like working on the specific tasks, and most of them don't meet and then work on it. They just like sit at their homes comfortably and then they work on their laptops. You can call them as a virtual teams. Okay, so that.
Ma'am, you have muted your audio, ma'am.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
So I'll repeat the virtual organization. It's actually a rather loose concept of group of individual firms or people they connect with each other through the IT infrastructure they have. Okay, so the virtual organization has its own advantages and disadvantages. When IBM developed the personal computer in 1981, all major components were acquired from the other companies. This enabled IBM to market the product in 15 months. Okay, so the microprocessor was bought from Intel, and the software was developed by Microsoft. The open architecture was like based on the well-known standards, and components could be like purchased from many vendors. By using outside parties, IBM had to invest very little. Okay, later the open architecture strategy reveals its downside, because other firms could purchase microprocessors directly from the Intel and software system from the Microsoft, and they were able to like make it. Okay, so this kind of organizations may have neither an organization chart nor a centralized buildings. But the modern library may not be a building with lots of bookshelves, but it will like data. It can be a database, a computer, or a modem. So these kind of things will be like a part of your virtual organization. Open University in the United Kingdom is also one of the example, like your Coursera and edX. Okay, the students here like they kind of spread all over the world, as well as the professors. They have like kind of never met each other, but they are like working on it. So these kind of possibilities are like very much exciting. Okay, next one is like your boundaryless organization. Okay, so it is actually an open environment where they kind of like share all their ideas regardless of like their origin. Okay, so this is kind of an initiative to remove barriers between the various departments, as well as between the domestic and international operations within a company. Okay, it actually is one of an initiative by General Electric. Okay, So this actually like started in General Electric few years back. So they adopted this kind of organization to reward people for adopting the integration model, and bonuses were awarded to those who are like able to generate new ideas and when they share them. Okay, so it's like you're not only confined to that particular department, and you should not be like working on the task in that particular department. If you're like part of if you think imagine you get into a job in a company where you become a data analyst, and you found out that you have a passion in HR, and then you and then if you want to like redefine the recruiting process, and if you might go and like talk to the HR department, or you can go get into the forum of HR and then talk about how they can like really redefine it. Okay, this is all completely possible, and this kind of concepts are like was not possible in the olden days. Only General Electric, that's a very famous company, they started this concept of boundaryless organizations where they give opportunity to everyone in the organization to speak out their views, and this kind of initiatives are made everyone to like think about the whole organization without any boundaries. Like in this like different types of departmentation available. So what kind of departmentation type will be like choosing for your organization? So as I was like talking about the management span, here also there is no best way. It actually differs from organization to organization, the factors that they have and the situation that they are in. Okay, so what are the things that they have to really taken into account before they choose their departmentation? First, what are the things that they have to do and how they have to do it? I mean, what are the tasks that they have to do, what the job they have to do, and the way it should be done. And next one is the what are the who are the people who are doing it, and what kind of personalities they have, and what is the technological infrastructure which is available in the company, and what kind of customers they have, and their external and internal environment. Based on these 5 things they have to go for a departmentation type. And sometimes you can also like have a mixed type. You can't like say, okay, I'll be going only for the departmentation of geographical location. Sometimes if you have like dealing with multiple products in multiple locations, you can really like mix it and then have the 2 department types combined together. Okay, it is completely possible. Okay, so that's what I have today. Thank you patiently for listening to the session. If you got any questions, just let me know. Thank you. Bye.